Bandwidth for This Week in Web Design provided by liquidweb.com.
Today, how do I accurately track my hours in web design? Are you feeling underpaid, like you work really hard, but your clients underappreciate what you do? They don't even know how much effort it takes? If you're like me, you've tried everything, pieces of paper, notepads, timekeeping software, but you always forget to click on the timer. So today, our guest expert, Brett Owens, CEO of Chrometa, will share with us how to make time tracking easy. Stick around, watch us work. Bienvenidos al episodio número 21. Yo soy su host, Don Francisco. Wait, that's the wrong show. That's Algo Gigante. Chief Education Officer of the school. Joining me always is Freelance Creative Director Extraordinaire, Aure Guimon. Welcome, Aure.
Thank you.
Today we're going to answer the question, how do I accurately track my hours in web design? An important topic. We will answer the following three questions. Number one, what are the most common challenges in tracking my hours? Number two, what are the best practices for tracking my time more accurately and easily? Number three, how should I present my time to my client? If you're joining, and in addition to that, just make sure that we have, I'm introducing Brett in a second. And Brett, if you can bring up your Skype, I don't think you're actually up right now. If you're joining us for the first time on the show, we help you accelerate your web design career by teaching you the creative, business, technology, and marketing secrets with myself and our guest experts that always join us. Aure's 150 years of experience, my 16 years of experience. You know, and our show's divided, for those of you who just want to get to the point, our show's divided into three parts: basics, practice, and example. The basics part starts at the 5-minute mark, which is going to be in about 1:43 seconds. Practice starts at the 10-minute mark, around there, and examples start about at the 20-minute mark. So actually at the 15-minute mark, if you want to go straight to the demo of what we're talking about today, go to the 15-minute mark of the video on your YouTube or on your iTunes, and you'll get what you want. If you're looking for HTML, CSS, or other great topics, like our topic today, you can also go to lynda.com, lynda.com, teamtreehouse.com, and one of our media sponsors, How Design University. How Interactive is one of our media sponsors, and they have How Design University, which is pretty awesome. Now, if you're one of the following, a student, and you're trying to get a job, if you're a freelancer and you want to make more money, today actually is an important episode for you freelancers. Or if you're an entrepreneur and you want to execute successfully and track what your team is doing, or if you're simply switching careers and now you're going to be doing web design or creative of any sort or development, this show is for you. Breathe. Now it's time when we go through the classical music. Time boxing, which is a concept from Scrum, where we actually time every segment we're in, is brought to you by Chrometa. And what we want to talk about today about Chrometa is that you have 4 days to enter the iPad giveaway. We're going to do it next week. We're going to unveil who the winner is. We've had a lot of great entries, so go to chrometa.com/thisweekend and let us know what you would like to hear about on the show. That's one of the key things. It ends this Friday. So you guys have 4 days, no purchases necessary, limited to the continental United States. Oh wait, Hawaii and Puerto Rico. Is that right, or are we going to ship this thing?
Like
globally.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. So let's start with the basics for those of you who like to keep on track. Básico, or in Chinese.
基础.
Ooh, dang. All right, during the basics, we're going to give you a quick 5-minute overview of the topic. And again, joining us today, our guest expert, Brett Owens, is going to help us. So Brett, take it away. How do I accurately track my hours in web design?
Okay, sure. So what we want to look at as the most common challenge is when tracking your hours. So the first is, how do you keep track when you start and stop a task? It's tough, really, sort of leading to the second challenge, account for interruptions. So when you have to get up from your desk, you start something, you're feeling good, and then you get interrupted for it. How do you accurately account for all that time? And then the end result, basically, end of the day, so you worked hard all day, you want to account for all of your project time and really avoid what we like to call time leakage. So we worked a full day, we want to be able to account for all the time.
It sounds like I need some Depends for that. Some sort of diaper leakage. Yeah. Well, I'm really, I can relate to the idea of interruptions, getting up from your desk, going to the bathroom, all this kind of stuff. I remember at Racerfish, Craig Canerick, I had to pass his office, one of the founders, to get to the bathroom, and he was like, "What are you doing? What are you standing up every 5 minutes? Where are you going?" Back to work. I stood up a lot and walked around the office a lot. So second question, what are the best practices for tracking my time accurately and easily?
So we need to be mindful that our time is our money. So if we're billing by the hour or if we're doing fixed fee work, we want to really get in the habit of printing out weekly reports that are nice and detailed for us, for our benefit, and also for our clients. And then up front, we also want to let them know what their hourly rate is, and then always report our hours to them at the end of a project. So even if it's fixed fee, we want to let them know how much work we put in to that, and in that as much level of detail as we can, and which sort of dovetails to our third best practice. So when we're working on a file, we got a file in Photoshop, put that client's name in there so we have an organized naming convention for all the files we work on, all the work that we do.
That's a really important thing. If you have a really good naming convention, and we developed a very specific naming convention at the group, we handed it out to everybody, we put it up around, and people knew that that's what they had to name their file. So it will it'll be easier for you to track what you've been working on, etc. So how should I present, this is really important, my time to my clients?
So it needs to be in a professional and understandable format. So let's put ourselves in their shoes. What do you want to see if you toss the project over the fence? So we want to see it very presentable, very straightforward. When we talk about invoices, we want them to include projects by name, by activity, and then break it down by day. So a real simple, concise description which shows, okay, here's what I worked on this day, here's what I worked on this day. Really helps present yourself in as professional way as you can. And then also importantly to share with them, hey, I'm using timekeeping software, it's professional grade stuff to keep track of my hours. I'm going to give you weekly reports and include this in your proposal, because a lot of concerned clients they toss it over the fence. They don't know where all their money is going, where your time is going. So this really helps to get this out of the way and put yourself in a good light up front.
That's really important. And one of my biggest pet peeves, Aure, is when designers give me invoices and it's just like one line. I have no idea what the invoice is for.
There's no breakdown, right.
There's no breakdown. It's almost like I want to see quantitatively what went into it.
Totally, or they spend like a month working on something and then they hit you with a giant bill and you're like, wait a minute, I mean, do you at least not care about telling me like on a weekly basis how many hours you spent? Like I think the more you manage your client in that respect, the less they're going to want some sort of proof.
Of value.
Of value, exactly.
And I think that this is really critical to the topic, because one of the things that I learned, in my practice is that, and this is, my mentors really taught me this, that the business is not about just specifically the deliverables. It's a consulting practice. You're selling your expertise and your hours. If you focus on selling, again, this is how I did it. You don't have to do it the same way. People package like, hey, you get a website with 3 pages for this much money. Now you're going product focus, and that's the value people think they're getting. But people walk in and they say, I want a website. Fine, that's the end result, but they want an expert to help them go through that, and that expert costs money. Look at lawyers. Look at consultants. They charge you time-wise. Even if you're not billing by the hour, if I get like a designer or a developer give me a little bit of a breakdown. Look, worst case scenario, just give the report of whatever hours you spent on that project. You don't even have to clean it up too much.
Like I always approach it that way. Even if the project is fixed fee, I'll tell the client, well, you want a website or you want a design. This is going to be approximately these many hours that I'm going to put into it. And when we get to the end, you'll have what you want, because I've done this before and I can gauge the amount of time it takes. But you're not going to keep going forever, and you're always going to keep checking in with them, how many hours you spent and how close you are to the final goal.
Awesome. Look at that. Aure hit the silent timing right. He ended his sentence right at the end of the timer. So a little bit of classical music to transition now to examples, please. We can breathe during this segment. Examples is brought to you by UI. What problem does UI solve for you? UI offers actually easy user testing for any website online. It lets you say, for an example, let's say you're launching a fashion e-commerce site, like Brent Steen, one of our listeners or one of our viewers in Brooklyn, and I have his site up here that you guys can check out, dearfieldfinder.com. It's a boutique in Brooklyn, and I've had the privilege of coaching him along a bit and making sure that he gets his site up, etc. He's using UI to test the site and to see what the reactions are from his customers. So if you sign up, you can see it right here behind me. Where is it? You can tweet them at UI Test for a free tester, a hired tester. People actually do it, And make sure when you go there to UI.com to get a free user test, you can sign up with you can get the free user test, plus if you're a viewer of the show, you'll get 10% off the pro account if you use the code TWID. Do we have that TWIWD? Do we have a title card for that? I don't think we do, but TWIWD, TWIWD. All right, awesome. So examples. Before we start, well, let's get into the example segment since we have 5 minutes and you can start the clock on that. Let's look at some examples of how people do it. Aure, both of us, and Brett, what are ways, I use my mini sprint form, and this is actually for a specific project. That's one way that I track my time right here. But in the olden days, I just used to use a piece of paper and write down what projects I was working on. What about you, Aure?
Same thing. I mean, I started doing it on paper, which was, just a problem to track it, and then to add it up at the end. I used QuickTime for a while when we were at the group, which was a little painful.
Why was QuickTime painful?
I think it didn't track your time automatically, so if you didn't do it on a consistent basis, you'd have to just go back and deconstruct your whole week and try to figure out what you worked on which day.
I mean, to be fair, it's a great product, and we used it for a really long time.
The UI is not great.
The UI was really what bothered me, but I'm a designer, and I'm awful, unless it's really designed for, ADD friendly.
I agree. I can't digest it.
I can't digest it.
Yeah.
But we used it successfully, and the producers, I just made up my hours, so at the end of the week.
It worked. It was just a little bit more painful than maybe something like this where it's going
like the producers had to force us to put in our time.
They had to force us.
They still had to remind us, put in your time, put in your time, put in your time. What else? Brett, what other solutions out there like FreshBooks?
Yeah, so FreshBooks is a popular one, and I'll show you. I've got my screen up here. So FreshBooks has a timer. So as long as you're keeping track as you go, so if you started working on a new Photoshop file, you can hit the play button, and then this is going to record as you go. When you're done, you hit stop, you say log hours, and then that's going to log your time in here, create a time entry for you. And then they also have a time sheet or time entry where you can enter your time direct into FreshBooks. So common for time and billing applications, you'll see the stopwatch combo that we have here with some sort of time entry, or some just do it sort of on the side with like a product like Excel or handwritten notes, as you guys were saying.
I always forget to hit the button.
I always forget to hit the button, yeah. And then there's other things like Harvest, which is also really interesting time tracking software. Does Harvest do it in the background or no? And it also does invoicing too for you.
I believe they're mostly timer based and time entry.
There's one called Toggle too, right?
Toggle is actually nice. I like Toggle. I mean, FreshBooks, we were looking at it, and one of my impression of it is, the challenge I have is that the UIs are very they're small and they're still almost like an Excel kind of form. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like when I design stuff, I make it really obvious kind of boundary so that I don't paint outside the boxes.
Right.
I don't know. It just helps me really deal with attention. It's still too thin and spindly. Toggle does a pretty interesting job at doing that, and Toggle, but also it's a button. You have to press and start, press and start.
Right.
All right. So can you start? So if we look at the entire landscape, are there any other solutions like Chrometa that do it in the background?
You'll see some that do it in the background, products like Rescue Time, and they'll do it. They won't do it per se for project tracking, more for personal productivity. So instead, they'll give you a breakdown of what you did, and then they'll try to group it for you from a productivity standpoint. So they'll say, okay, you're doing this too much time on social media. So that's sort of the different angle that some other background type tracking.
So we have a question from the live audience. We have Chris Kosa in Greece, actually. Welcome, Chris. And he's asking the question, hey, he's actually in high school, and he wants a career in web design, and he's asking me the question, hey, in a project, can I get paid for the time I work? And the answer to that is yes. You can actually tell someone, this is how many hours this is going to cost. Here's my hourly rate. And you put that into your contracts, which if you see in the Agency in a Box contract, it actually has at the beginning that we'll be using a time tracking software, and it has Chrometa actually in there just by default, and that you're going to be giving them reports. You can take that out. You don't have to. You don't have to do that. But is it worth it, Aure? It's a big question.
It's totally worth it. It's totally worth it. And I would add to that in that it's not just the time that you spend actually working in Photoshop, which we say every week. It's the time that you spend you know, on Skype doing like conference calls with your client, or when you're responding to their emails. So it's all these little tasks that you're doing that ultimately make up that big chunk of time that you're spending with the client. It's not just the time that you spend in Photoshop. And the good thing about Chrometa is it's letting you track all that.
So that's the leakage that you're talking about, or that we talked about earlier. So another question, and Brett, I'd like you to walk us through during the practice session through a scenario of using Chrometa. But another question from Chris, you know, why do you have colorful pages and not only white pages? So Chris, again, to answer your question, and is it Chris or Chris Cosa? It's Chris Cosa. They're all on your desk. You have tons of papers. Something that I can really pay attention to is really bright, and they're color-coded. I already know that the yellow is the daily sprint. You know, the magenta is the weekly priorities, and then I have my other kind of forms. So it's for me to pay attention. I'm trying to make my life. I'm life hacker. You know I'm trying to hack my life so that it's as smooth as possible, and it takes the least amount of effort mentally to shift from task to task, which is one of the things the thing that costs the most time, by the way, is switching tasks. And since we switch back and forth so much between tasks, we miss them. And there's two things. Obviously, one, you have to focus and work a little differently potentially. Instead of focusing like working all ADD style, do this. Do a time boxed 1 hour, and you only do the task there, and you have a timer. But this is timing me down. This is not tracking my project hours, right?
Right.
I have Chrometa running in the background, and I'll show everybody my Chrometa. So did I just pick my nose on air?
Don't pick your
That's
nose.
awful.
That's awful.
All right, so
do you remember what Tony used to say, that the work kind of expands to fill the time that you, because that was kind of like his
the amount of time that you give it. So if I only give this particular school mini sprint was complete the script and be ready for the show, 60 minutes, I completed all my tasks in those 60 minutes. I had to bust, like I had to haul and do it really quick. Right. All right, so for the next 10 minutes, let's get the classical music and get the practice session going. Practice, práctica.
实践
I love the language lesson. So in practice, Brett, can you show us a little bit, give us a basic overview of Chrometa. How does it work?
Sure. So what we use for our depends, if you will, is we have a local app that you install either on your PC or your Mac, and that's this guy up here, what we call our little time collector. And this is what's keeping track as you go, and this is basically acting as your personal timekeeper. So as you go from your Photoshop files, so say you get interrupted with a phone call, back to Photoshop, and then you get interrupted with an email, and then you go look at a Google Doc, and then back to Photoshop. So you're jumping around quite a bit, but that's okay. I mean, that's just life, right? You get interrupted as you work with phone calls, emails, you go from one thing to another. If you're not able to perfectly time box it, which is just natural. So what we're doing is we're actually recording each one of those, so you don't have to stop a timer as you go. We're going to do that for you. So we're going to say, okay, you're in Photoshop, and then what's the name of that Photoshop file? So as long as it's named with your client name, we can then discern that for you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take all these little instances and we're going to roll that up for you. So we're going to say, okay, inside of Adobe Photoshop this morning, you spent 16 minutes.
Wait, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute, Brett. What you're saying is that this is just doing that automatically.
Exactly.
You're not putting in all those entries. It's just putting them in for you. You're working in Photoshop. The application that you download just knows, tracks it, puts it on there.
Exactly. So you move around, and then we just start, basically, we start our own timer as you go to the new activity. So I can actually show you here. So I'm in Photoshop here, and then I leave to take a phone call. And then we know that because we can see if you're away. Our time collector knows, okay, you were idle. So we give you a pop-up when you come back, and then I've logged this time as a phone call with my client. And then basically each time you restart a task, we're restarting that timer for you.
So quick question, what made you interested in this? I mean, I'm curious, and just now it piques my curiosity, and it piques my curiosity and that of our viewers. Give me a little bit about your background. I mean, you're the CEO of Chrometa, and again, yes, you are one of our sponsors, a longtime sponsor, and I'm really grateful for that. That allows our team to work on this awesome show every week. But what in the hell possessed you to do this?
Sure. So I was undergrad engineering at Cornell, and had a friend who wanted, actually this is sort of his brainchild, where he's an attorney, and he hated doing his time at the end of the week, end of the month. It was just a big nightmare for him. So he said he always had to do his forensic analysis to try to sort of reconstruct his time at the end of the week. So I was working for a project management software company at the time, a small one. Anyway, he kind of came up with this idea, so we thought it was interesting, and I looked at it with my friend. We thought it was a real interesting problem, because if you look at most time tracking products out there, you see that most of them are timer based, like you said, but if you don't stop the timer, there's nothing that can really help you after the fact.
Got it. So and you went to Cornell University, and you're here in California, in the middle of California, correct?
Here in Sacramento now.
Sacramento,
Yep,
awesome.
You got it.
And you guys have been around for how many years?
And then we started in 2007, and we had our first version out in 2009. And then this current release has been out for a little over a year now.
So let's keep on going through it, and we'll talk a little bit more about the roadmap of the product. So let's do a scenario. I am actually one of our Puppet users at the beginning in the intro, Rob?
The freelancer?
The freelance developer. I'm Rob, and I'm doing design, I'm doing development, I'm doing all of it. How am I going to use Chrometa? So I download the app, I got past that, and now it's tracking. So what are the main things that I need to know? Because this is doing it automatically. So for me, like pretend that check it out. If you bring up my screen, so I've been idle for a few minutes and I have my preferences set up, so welcome back. So let's pretend that I got up and I did something else. So here on the description, I can just say, actually it lets you automatically say phone call, meeting, lunch, and I can say working on my show. Actually, doing my show right now, so doing my show, and I log it. So it actually tracked the time that I was away from my computer when I came back, and hey, what the hell have you been doing?
Right.
That's actually pretty cool. So you can really capture a lot of that leakage.
There you go.
And make sure that all those additional. Now you know how much time it really takes to do the work you do. So for those people who think that web design is easy, it's really relative to time and the task at hand. So let's keep on going. I'm Rob. I just signed up. I just downloaded the app. Now it's tracking all this stuff. I'm trying to make sense of it. What do I do? What's the next step that I do as Rob?
So what Rob would then do is say he's been running us he's been running Chrometa since this morning. So Rob can then logs into Chrometa, and then he's got his time broken out for him. So we break it out by application and then by what you're doing. So Rob's got Photoshop time broken down by file name. He's got his Chrome time, which includes details about email time. So we have, for example, a Gmail plugin, and that's this guy up here that we wrote, which helps you capture your Gmail time by taking the subject line and the to from info. If you're in Google Docs, we're capturing that. And then also the await time, like you just showed, Jose. So we've got the await time that Rob can see. So what he's got here is all of his time, and it's uncategorized right now. And then what Rob's then going to do is he's either going to set up rules that will automatically categorize this for him, or he can just sort of go in and he can file these away, like he would file away an email, for example, from your inbox into a certain folder.
So the different tabs, for example, timestamps versus summary. Summary is obviously a summary, and then you can open them up. But the timestamps are just straight up, pom, 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 pom. And if you can show my screen, here, campaign builder, template. This is looking at my May 22nd.
Summary is like broken down by app, right? And then timestamps is like just chronological.
Everything chronologically. Right. So I'm spending a lot of time on MailChimp, campaign building. The school mail, it knows what the hell I'm looking at in my email. That's awesome. So this is obviously me going through and doing an email campaign, right?
This is your day?
That's my day. That was actually, it says 12, I don't know, this was last night, this morning. Anyway, so let's go, and then I can do reports, and I have summaries. So let's talk about reports. How do I invoice? Let's say, okay, so let's talk about categorization. So like, for example, right now, if you bring my screen back up, I can see that I was doing Illustrator here, and it says click to expand or collapse, which is kind of nice. And this was 3 seconds only, but it might be a bigger task. So campaign builder, I can choose the task, and I can say move to, like I can choose a series of tasks. And I could actually automate this and simply use it. So all this stuff is MailChimp. I can actually then move it to summer school, which is what I'm preparing for, which is going to be a series of seminars this summer here at the network. And that's it. That's all I have to do. I have to go through all my time that day. Is that it?
That's it, and then in the process you can also add an annotation if you'd like, and then what we're going to do on the annotation is then we're going to pull that directly into an invoice, and I can actually show you what an invoice will look like. So what we do is we can take a couple consecutive time entries. So what I did is I just categorized them. I said, okay, here's the project, this is the categorization, so this is what you just did, and then this is the annotation. And we're going to round it up based on whatever you have set as your rounding factor, so 6 minutes in this case here, and we give you a total amount of time. So you can either send this over to direct to a client, you can show this to them. You could also export it if you already have a billing system, so we do export to systems like QuickBooks Online and FreshBooks, name a couple of them, where you could export your time entries over, and then you can see them in a nice detailed format that you can then give to your client.
Awesome. So
That's
this
awesome.
really keeps it really clean. Are you using this, or are you just transferring it over?
I'm using just straight Chrometa, and
And you just do a report?
yeah, I do a report, and it's got when you create a client, it's got a little email field that you can add, and it sends reports to the client.
That's amazing. So I want to show two things. One, well, I want to answer a question again. A viewer on the Justin TV, I was going to say on the interwebs. A viewer on the interwebs is saying, what the WTF? You know, it actually is following you. I'm in high school. Chrometa's 14 days free trial. If you watch the show, Chris, you get a 30-day free trial if you want to use it for 30 days. And you know, we can talk to Brett and figure it out. There it is. So, but the question he had was, WTF? Say hi to Aure. I like his style.
Good deal.
That's from the chat room.
Right on.
Thank you, Chris. That's what Aure just said. The question is specifically it's running behind, you know, the scenes, quote unquote, and he's like, what WTF? It looks at what you're doing. Yes, it does. So if you're doing naughty things on your computer,
yeah, exactly.
there is a pause button right here where you can pause Chrometa. Let me show my screen again. So here, right here, it gives you a little tiny. Oh, there again is asking me what I was doing. Log it.
I always forget to
explaining
click the pause
Chrometa. I'm
button.
explaining Chrometa. I actually set my preferences to come up really frequently just for the show. But here I can just pause the whole thing, and it stops tracking your time.
And you can always go back, and you know, if you forgot to hit the pause button, you can delete some stuff that maybe you don't want your boss to see.
Yeah, you don't want to put it on the report.
You know.
You guys know what I'm talking about. Alrighty, moving on from that. So Brett, we're done on our segment, the 10 minutes, and I want to say thank you for walking us through that. The last thing I want to ask you, there's so much more, so the trial is really important. What is the roadmap? What are you doing next with Chrometa, with the product?
Sure. So from a product standpoint,
and can you
you're
come
gonna
back up
see-
on Skype versus can you turn your camera? There you go.
Yeah, got camera. Okay, cool. So you're gonna see some new reports on the main screen. So our goal really is, because as you know, Jose, we capture a lot of information. So our goal is to get this really distilled down into a few things that you can just kick out straight to a timesheet, straight to a report for your client. So we're doing some work on there that's kind of a little behind the scenes, but it helps further smooth out the process for you. And then the exciting one that a lot of people are ready for is we'll have some mobile supported stuff too. So I actually have test copy run on my Android phone, and then we have an iPhone version that we're working on as well. So you'll see some stuff mobile that will capture from these types of devices and then sync it all up in the screen that you just saw.
So now I can actually do my computer, but this morning I was taking the train here, and believe it or not, yes, in LA there is a train to the studio, and I was emailing and catching up on a few things on my iPhone. So now you're saying that you'll be able to do that for Android.
That's tight.
That's cool. I'm really excited about
Hey,
the
Debbie's
roadmap.
got a great question.
Yeah, Debbie does have a great question. Go ahead, ask it.
She says, can you customize a Chrometa invoice, like adding your company logo?
You can add your company. That's a good question, Debbie. Actually, that's I should have added that on the roadmap. So you can customize with your company name and address, and then we'll be taking a look at customizing that invoice further.
By the way, that's the most important thing for me as a designer. I spent like 5 hours customizing my QuickBooks. Oh, and it integrates into QuickBooks Online too. You mentioned that.
We do. We go
Currently
into
it does.
QuickBooks Online as well as FreshBooks, that we mentioned.
And there's an
earlier.
integration section in it. So if you, that's pretty damn awesome, dude. I'm going to just so basically I could go in and I can set up, my preferences to filter different tasks, let's say the show, etc., the school, etc., and it will be tracking those, and I can tell it what things to put into that category automatically, and then it's going into my QuickBooks Online, and I can even see the amount of time I'm spending relative to the amount of money I'm making from it.
It's all automated.
Whoa! Okay, let's stop the whoa-ness. It's like the Matrix when Neo goes, whoa. All right, so thank you again. I really appreciate you being on here today, Brett. And next week, there's only 4 days left for the iPad. So for those of you guys who want to win an iPad, go to Chrometa.com/ better yet, this weekend after Chrometa.com/this weekend, tell us what you want to hear about, but better yet, sign up for the 30-day trial. Thank you, Brett. Thank you for joining us. Stick around for a little bit for the post questions. We're going to stay for a few minutes. And I want to say a few announcements here in the last few minutes. Talk about the inner circle and talk about the difference between inner circle and agency in a box. A lot of you are asking me on Twitter, on Facebook, everywhere, hey, what's the difference between these two things? So I want to bring up a graphic that Michelle, our producer, did for us. Actually, the split graphic that shows, there you go. So the inner circle there on the left, that's the show, This Week in Web Design. And that's like NPR for $50. That's the highest level you can support. We lowered it from 100 to 50 because many of you wanted to join. We're doing a monthly coaching call. The next call is on the 25th of May, which is 3 days from now. And we're coaching our audience going through the process, either starting their web design firm or we discussed last time, Dave Cohen going through doing his business plan. I'm helping him do that for his agency in Philadelphia. Robert Haydock, who's a longtime member of the Producers Program, which is now called the Inner Circle, he's doing a startup, and we're catching up, and I'm seeing where he's at with it. What are the next things that he needs to do? So that's invaluable time for me to be able to advise our audience. And then second to that, we have the community of peers in the back channel that you can ask questions to. So if I can't answer the question, somebody else can. And you're getting select school templates. I'm beginning to release those as they get completed for the new templates, like the sales template, etc., only to the people in the inner circle. Separate from that, the school, which is a completely different, even though I understand they look the same a bit. Here we separate them for you so that you can recognize them. The school is, I'm teaching every Thursday for an hour and a half. That's $75 a month. But right now, one of the things that I just put together for Stephanie, one of our students, is an agency in a box, which is basically everything that I've used for the last 10 years. And if you bring up my screen, I want to show folks what agency in the box is. So Aure, you've seen this before, but I'm taking what is 100 right now.
Jesus.
This is 199
it's the group
page
Bible
workbook, which is the group Bible that we did over the years to help us. It's an entire process end to end, from what information architecture is to brainstorming to how to do user profiles, etc. Those are all available for you in this booklet that I'm actually going through and giving to you. I'm cleaning up all the pages, etc. So I'm giving away everything. And the final slide, and then I'll stop talking about this. The final slide, that if you can show the grid of everything that comes in agency in a box, that one right there. So what I just showed you on my screen is just the bonus. It's a step-by-step roadmap, that first thing there. Everything else you're going to get, including the templates for my mini sprints and for the weekly priorities, the sales. If you go back to the other screen, it's all there. You have the starting toolkit, which you'll do your business plan. You have the marketing and sales plan, which you'll write down exactly how you're going to market your practice. And then you have the building a team, which is what we're going to talk about this Thursday at 12 noon Pacific or 3 Eastern in the School Live. You guys can go to theschoolrocks.com to sign up for either. Again, this is my mission personally, is to teach the standard process for successful web projects. It's about people. It's not about technology, ultimately.
It's about communication, right?
Yeah, it's about communication. Yeah. Technology is going to change. So go to the School Rocks, check it out. The agency in the box, when we sell this is a pre-sale, when we're going to start selling because we're working on it right now, and you can give your input. So this is an opportunity for us to include stuff that you want. And keep in mind that when we separate them out into individual modules, collectively it's going to be $1,200. Each module is going to be $200-300. And now we're actually doing it because it's a pre-sale. It's 7 days. So by next Tuesday, we'll end the pre-sale, and we'll then be selling them separately at the regular price. So it's a great opportunity for you guys, and thank you for supporting me, for supporting the show. as part of the inner circle, bring up that slide again with the separation. You can go to thisweekinwebdesign.com to sign up for the inner circle. That's separately. Or you can either A, sign up for the school. And the reason why we lowered the price for the inner circle is because there were people that wanted to join. For example, Cheryl Anderson, she wanted to join the inner circle and she wanted to join the school. So instead of charging $100 for the inner circle, we charge $50, $75 for the school, and now it's a cool $125. And is it worth it, Aure?
It's totally
worth
worth
having
it.
me here worth it for you?
Totally, totally. I mean, there's so much experience there, and just seeing this document that you have on your screen, that was the process that you guys went through when you were trying to systemize.
I spent a lot of time trying to systemize the business,
right,
so that I can
so you can step away.
back and
right.
have other people work on
exactly.
it. And that was my intuition as a designer. To do that, and I really appreciate all the people, a lot of people work to do this. So thank you again, Aure, and thank you, Brett. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Chrometa again, and to UI, our sponsors. Really appreciate their patronage. Join us live next week at 2:30 Pacific Standard Time, 5:30 Eastern, and if you're in Australia, 10:30. And please don't forget to like us on Facebook, on Google+, and on Twitter. Join us on Twitter. All this stuff is right there below in the YouTubes. If you're watching us on iTunes, go over to the YouTubes. Leave a review on iTunes too. Again, this is about the business of web design and about getting you guest experts to talk about that, not tutorials. So when people leave reviews, this is not a tutorial. We look forward to having you again next week. Stick around for live Q&A afterwards for the next 20-15 minutes. Otherwise, we will see you next week when you watch us work.